Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. There has been some rumors, so we're starting up the rumor mill today.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. By the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Carter, before we get into anything, I have to mention to follow us on Twitter, Braden5Wasco, Carter First 2, as well as on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. And also drop a subscription. You're here already. You're watching. Keeps us at the top of your page. Helps us out a ton. And we've noticed like 70% of you guys aren't subscribed. So it really does help out. It means the world to us. But it's time. The rumor mill is going. I don't know how many times I have to say this. It seems like we got rumor mill rumors all the time. But the rumor is, and I'm going to put a big asterisk on this, is that Christian Yelich has been linked to a trade with the Toronto Blue Jays, and within that deal is Alek Manoah. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that this was talked about during the offseason into spring training, that something like this could happen. Carter, I'm going to throw it to you. There's been a lot of online buzz. Is anything you're seeing legitimate?
See, I haven't seen anything from credible sources, but I've seen a lot of fan perspectives, a lot of just people tweeting, making videos, a bunch of things, saying that it does make sense for Christian Yelich to come to the Blue Jays, and they do see it being a possibility. For me, I don't see it as being as realistic. I do see it as being a huge fit for the Toronto Blue Jays. I see it being a huge team need as well. It makes perfect sense for the Toronto Blue Jays. But when you're looking from the Milwaukee Brewers, they're 11-6. I mean, again, it is early on in the year, but 11-6 doesn't really seem like you want to trade away one of the best players on your team when you're at the top of your division. And Christian Yelich, it would take a ton to get Christian Yelich from the Brewers. Depends how teams are viewing Alek Manoah. I don't know if I've said this on the podcast multiple times. Alek Manoah, when he's not pitching in Buffalo, he's with the Toronto Blue Jays team all the time. Like, he's always on the bench. He's in the dugout everywhere. I don't know if that's like a smokescreen. Maybe there's more truth to this than we think. Maybe they're having him with the team. So they're not trying to give away Alek Manoah and how bad he actually is. They're trying to keep him with the team. Oh, he's close to him. But he's close. He's still got promise, trying to keep some of that trade value, because everything we've seen on the baseball field from Alek Manoah suggests that his value is lower than it ever has been. So I can't imagine that the Alek Manoah stock would move the needle a ton for the Brewers. So again, in this trade hypothetical, we would have to move prospects the other way. And I'm assuming it would be two or more very highly touted prospects, probably at least one prospect from the top five. So it would be a huge move for the Jays. Christian Yelich, though, this guy can mash baseballs, a left-handed bat, definitely a need for this team. An outfield spot that we do need as well. A little bit of a question mark there right now with Davis Schneider, Kevin Kiermaier, all that situation going on. I guess Ernie Clement you could throw out there as well. So Christian Yelich would definitely put a staple on that left field position. But is it realistic? The Brewers have a better record than the Jays. With Ross Atkins, maybe something at the deadline. Maybe the Brewers have a historic collapse. But as for right now, this early on in the season, there's no way this is happening. If it were to happen, maybe before trade deadline. But even then, I'm pretty skeptical on this one.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think this is complete bogus. I probably could find another word for that, but whatever. We're going with bogus. No, this is garbage. There's nothing. I don't think there's any validity to this, and there might have been talk early on in the offseason if the Brewers weren't sure how they were going to be. That's a possibility. But in the same vein, yeah, you're right. This is 100%. The Jays would accept this, I think, in a heartbeat. And I think as a fan, you would love to see this happen as well. But yeah, to be realistic, Alek Manoah is not moving the needle right now for any team. Let's be real. Let's be honest. The guy hasn't done anything in a year and a half. And really, looking at his AAA stats that he's pitched so far, no team is being like, oh, that's the guy we want for our and he's going to have to be in your starting rotation if you're making a trade for him. So this is just not in the ballpark for me. And yeah, you'd have to give up probably a Elvis Martinez or Addison Barger. I mean, nobody's touching Ricky Tiedemann, but it's probably going to be one, or if not both of those guys, and probably just one more than likely. But this is just a trade that isn't even in my stratosphere right now.
I don't know. And this for Christian Yelich, the way this guy plays, a former MVP candidate, I think it's could definitely take Ricky Tiedemann. I think this could take 2 of our top 10 prospects. Just looking at the way Christian Yelich is playing right now, I got a stat pulled up here. He has 13 hits, 5 home runs, 11 RBIs. He is hitting .333 with an OPS of 1,166.
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying that it's out of the blue, out of the realm of possibilities, but I just can't see the Blue Jays wanting to part with Ricky T, because he is sort of the future of this starting 5. I think that's the ideal where he's going to land, or that where the team thinks that he's going to be eventually. But to be honest, like taking it out of the perspective of what would it be, I think we got to start with the biggest question is there any legitimacy to this? And I fully believe that there is absolutely none. I think some people thought about this going into in the offseason into spring training, that maybe the Jays make this move in the offseason, something to do with Yelich. But now that we're starting the season, I can't see the Jays making a trade until at least close to the deadline. And I think to get a bat like Christian Yelich is just not in the cards right now, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the Blue Jays, I'm just saying the Blue Jays would have to give up a ton if this were in the cards, but I agree. I don't think this is going to happen. Christian Yelich is just a proven player. It would take so much to get this guy from the Milwaukee Brewers. And again, with you're sending the major league talent the other way, and that's Alek Manoah is their major league talent, the big move you're sending the other way for the Toronto Blue Jays. Unless the Brewers are really valuing Alek Manoah for some reason, they see something in him that maybe some other, like the Toronto Blue Jays fans aren't seeing. I mean, like we said, there is potential in Alek Manoah. We do see what he can be. So maybe there are some teams that would like to capitalize on that potential. Maybe they do think that they can resurrect Alek Manoah's career and kind of get that back out of him. But I think it would take a whole lot more than Alek Manoah and just a couple prospects for Christian Yelich. But this is,
I was going to say, to be honest with you, if there was a piece including either Davis Schneider or Ernie Clement in that trade, then you got to think, okay, maybe this is a little bit more legitimate, right? If we start hearing rumors of Ernie Clement or Davis Schneider being in a package deal with Alek Manoah and a prospect, this deal then makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah, to me, this deal would be something like, I agree, it'd be like Davis Schneider. I don't know, even Ernie Clement. I don't even know if he would be going the other way. Maybe a Kevin Biggio would be moving the other way. Maybe a Yusei Kikuchi, a guy on his last year of his deal. Again, he's a little bit older, though. It's there. You'd have to send a lot more major league talent than just Alek Manoah is my main point from this. Yeah. Alek Manoah is not moving the needle for anyone. So the fact that people are thinking that we can get away for getting Christian Yelich, an MVP candidate, a guy that's hitting over 300, going to be hitting 30 home runs or on the cusp of it pretty much every year, I think that's just kind of laughable. It's it's something that is just not going to happen. It's not realistic. Christian Yelich, I would love for him to be a Toronto Blue Jay. Do I see it happening? Probably not. But if it were to happen, it would happen near the trade deadline. Yeah, this isn't Christian Yelich related, but since we are on the talking point of Alek Manoah in this trade, Dan Schulman and Buck Martinez were talking on the Wednesday's broadcast of the New York Yankees game. And they were talking about our starting pitching and just Alek Manoah starts in Buffalo, how about in Francis was, Yari Rodriguez, all that kind of stuff. And they rated actually the back 5, 6, and 7 of our starting rotation. And they had it as Yari Rodriguez, Alek Manoah, and then Bowden Francis. So I don't know if I know they're under Sportsnet. They probably don't have as much freedom to kind of say how they actually think on Alek Manoah. And maybe they're getting directions from internally that they're supposed to say specific things about Alek Manoah. But if you think Alek Manoah is better than Bowden Francis and a more reliable starter than Bowden Francis, these guys are covering the Blue Jays every day. There's no way they can believe this statement that they said. Like, that is crazy to me. I know Bowden Francis hasn't shown it, but Alek Manoah has been way worse than Bowden Francis has been. And Bowden Francis at least has shown you that he can be a competent baseball player within the last season and within the last year of baseball. whereas Alek Manoah hasn't thrown a good inning of baseball in how long?
Yeah, year and a half.
Has had a good
Yeah.
start. So the fact that they alluded to this on the broadcast was very surprising to me.
To be honest with you, if we're gonna be real here and try not to be like these corporate guys, Alek Manoah's number 8 in potential and where we want to see. He's number 8.
Might even be number 9 if you still count Mitch White on the team. Paulo
Right,
Espino. I mean,
because
I
right
might
now,
forgot Paulo Espino more than Alek Manoah right now. I don't know if that might be more of a debate than some people are saying, but I'm trusting Paulo Espino based off what he's done in spring training, what he's done for this team in his service time for the major league club. He's shown that he can be productive at the major league level more recently than Alek Manoah has, right?
And that's not even like so. So I was talking about Ricky Tiedemann, but you're right.
Oh, there's Ricky Tiedemann too. There's so many different options here we have that are probably more trustworthy than Alek Manoah is, and that's, I mean, like we always say, a great problem to have when we can have probably 9 starters. Again, you don't want to rely on Paulo Espinal to make a start in the MLB, but you could if it was absolute worst case scenario. So I think that's a good thing from where we're at from a couple seasons ago, where we were kind of forced to make that Mitch White trade later on in the season for the Dodgers, giving up Nick Frasso, which, again, I'm still pretty pissed off about considering how good Nick Frasso looks like he's going to be. But now we have all the starter depth. We won't have to make a random emergency move to bolster the bullpen, bolster the starting rotation. We have the depth. We have all the pieces there. So that's definitely nice for the starting rotation and this pitching staff altogether.
Well, and to be honest with you, I mean, as much as we dog Alek Manoah, it's sort of justified. And I think that's the difference when we're talking about, like, I don't mean to boost our egos too much, but when you're talking about it from a fan podcast perspective compared to all these guys within the, Sportsnet and as much as I love Buck and Dan, I mean, like, come on, guys. Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Like, we can't be serious. Alek Manoah is not 6. He's not 7. He's not 8. He might be 8, but like, this is just ridiculous. And for them to say that on the Blue Jays broadcast makes me think that there's some other people pulling some strings here.
See, it was Buck that led the conversation, and as we know, Buck has said some very interesting things on the broadcast. So maybe he was just having one of those momentary lapses that he has been accustomed to having on the Toronto Blue Jays broadcast. And with all this talk about outside hitting and the production Christian Yelich is having on the season, we're going to talk about this Toronto Blue Jays lineup and how things have shaped up so far throughout the first 19 games of the season. Who's hot, who's not, who's hitting well, who isn't. We're going to get into all that coming up.
Well, Carter, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Man, do I love FanDuel. This might be my go-to app on my phone right now. I know I said that about Monopoly Go, but FanDuel is definitely what's taking up the most screen time. Probably FanDuel. I don't know if that's a great thing. You know what? I was debating on betting on the Toronto Raptors, but it seems like the guy who I usually have been placing my bets on is now not in the league anymore.
Well, you were winning so often, so consistently betting on Jonte Porter, but I don't think you're going to be able to do that anymore. Your way to win in the NBA is unfortunately gone for life. So
dang it. Anyway, not talking about that garbage situation. What an absolute bonehead move. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. I always say the security, safety thing is huge on these betting sites. That's why I trust FanDuel. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So, Carter, hitting stats. We've talked about who's hot, who's not. Like, you said it perfectly. If I had to ask you one guy that you'd say is exceeding expectations and being very, very solid for this team right now, who are you picking?
This is a guy that I was high on in the offseason, again, throughout the first 10 games, along with pretty much everyone else on the Toronto Blue Jays. Pretty horrible first 10 games, but a guy who has been picking it up exponentially, especially in this New York Yankees series, and that is Dalton Varsho. Dalton Varsho's numbers on the year, not going to jump off the page, but in the last 7 games, Dalton Varsho's at-bats, we've been saying this podcast, have been looking a whole lot better, and the numbers are finally reflecting this. So in the last 7 games, he has 21 at-bats, 7 hits, 4 home runs, 8 RBIs, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts, hitting .333 with a slugging percentage of .952. This guy is launching the baseball. Dalton Varsho, pull side home runs. I was saying how awesome they are, and we got 2 pull side home runs in one game. So that was awesome to see. Dalton Varsho, again, such a key piece to this lineup. This is why Christian Yelich would be a huge addition to this team, because without Dalton Varsho is our guy that we need to be as close to Christian Yelich as we can get, because he's the guy that we need to have power from the left side, and an outfielder that has some power, is quick, can play pretty much anywhere. A guy that is a multiple tool player, can do pretty much anything you need to do, you need to ask of him. So Dalton Varsho, again, most home runs on the team, more than Vladdy, more than Bo, more than Justin Turner. A guy that on a very lackluster season last year still hit 20 home runs. So he does have the power. The average is a thing that Dalton Varsho is never really going to have. He's never going to be a 300 hitter. You can have Dalton Varsho hit 250, 260, hit 30 home runs from the 6, 7 spot in the order. You're going to be very happy with that. It's Dalton Varsho. You just need the consistency. Hopefully, with this New York Yankees series, you hit 2 home runs off of pretty good pitching in the New York Yankees, one being off Marcus Stroman. The second one, I think Marcus Stroman just went out of the game there, so it was one of the Yankees relievers, but still, Dalton Varsho, very high on him. Hopefully, he continue his success. I have Dalton Varsho as a guy that I'm very excited about for the rest of the season. Braden, as for you, who do you have as being a guy that you've been accustomed to looking at? Who do you think is doing really well to start the season for the Toronto Blue Jays?
Yeah, and I think this one's pretty obvious. I think, Dalton Varsho is a good option, but you got to go with the guy who was, before Wednesday's game, I believe, was leading the league in batting average, and that is Justin Turner. He has been just electric all season. He's exactly what me and you thought he was going to be. Maybe not that good, but we assumed that he was going to fill this role better than Brandon Belt did, and he absolutely has so far this season. He's been electric. He's batting .333 right now. He's got 2 home runs, 1 home run, and 9 RBIs. So just huge. He's got an OPS of .943. He's playing electric. I think the Wednesday game brought him down because he didn't have the best outing there. But overall, this entire season, he has been just electric. If there's one guy, Carter, on this team that you had to pick that's not playing up to their standards, or not playing up to a standard that you thought has been the worst player on this team, who do you have?
See, I didn't want to take the cop-out answer and pick Kevin Kiermaier. So I did a little bit more looking into this, more of a deep dive, and I did find a guy. I knew this in the back of my head, but I didn't want to allude to it because we do love this guy. We love this guy on the podcast. But being a Jays fan, covering this team, I do have to call him out here, unfortunately. And that is Davis Schneider. Davis Schneider, again, having clutch at-bats, but I will take clutch at bats, but we do need to see some more consistency from Davis Schneider. On the season, he's hitting .216 with 2 home runs, 8 RBIs. Last 7 games has not been very kind to him. He's hitting .167 with 6 strikeouts, 2 walks, 3 hits. Davis Schneider, this could be part to him not playing every day. We always say it is tough to get into a routine when you're playing every other day, even if that. Davis Schneider, I don't even think he's getting every other day. It has been better recently. John Schneider, I don't know if people are in his ear, giving him a little bit more playing time more consistently, especially with his play in left field. This guy's making diving catches left and right. So maybe you get this guy in the lineup more consistently, it will help him out. But it's also tough to get him in the lineup when Kevin Biggio is having really good at-bats. IKF out of nowhere, didn't really expect that to happen, having good at-bats. Ernie Clement being a very serviceable player as well. So you have so many options, so many mouths to feed on this team. When you have Davis Schneider struggling at the start of the season, it's tough to give this guy at-bats when you have so many other guys just having better at-bats and playing better baseball, unfortunately, than Davis Schneider from the offensive side of the plate. And that's the interesting aspect going into this, because for me, Davis Schneider, out of 4 players that we thought were going to play second base, you have Ernie Clement, Kevin Biggio, IKF, and Davis Schneider. I thought Davis Schneider was probably going to be the worst defender out of all those guys. And so far, he's debatably been the best defender out of all those guys. Maybe IKF. IKF's been really good this season, but some of the catches Davis Schneider's made in the outfield are insane. We just need him to turn it around a little bit at the plate, catch a hot streak. We've seen it happen. I'm sure it can happen again. But David Schneider, you got to be a little bit better down the stretch for this season.
I agree. And you know what? He's a guy that I had circled as well. I think the one difference that David Schneider does bring, and which I think gives him more stock, is his hitting in clutch situations. I think he's a very good hitter when, it's, the game might be on the line. We've seen that once already this season. He's just a very good ball. Actually, twice, because he hit that single also into
he had a double into the gap against I think it was the Yankees, and they almost came back a Saturday night, I believe.
Yeah, so he's been very solid that way. But yeah, just as an overall, you need a guy to get on base. You need a guy to hit home runs. And if you're not going to get on base a ton, you got to be hitting them over the fence. And he's just a guy that hasn't really done that. If I had to pick my guy, I think this is another more obvious one, and I hate to do it to him, but it's our boy Alejandro Kirk. He has just not been what we need this season. He's batting a 192. Of course, not quite at that Mendoza line, which is just tough to see. And then, of course, his OPS. I'm trying to bring it up here quickly, but my app is just deciding not to load. It's a 507. Again, not what you need. The guy is just not playing up to the standards. And I think when Jano comes back in, I think that's Jano's position to lose right now.
I'm going to try to spin zone this and say Alejandro Kirk was just playing too much. He got overworked too early in the season.
Jesus.
Bullpen's arms. He's a little tired. Look at the Kirk build. He can't be playing every day. Come on. It's hard on the knees being a catcher. Come on.
That's true.
You don't see any catchers playing every day anymore. Give Kirk the benefit of the doubt. But it's tough to see for me with Kirk, considering how good he was at spring training. But that is exactly why spring training stats do not matter at all. This time is hitting over 400. And now under 200, you see it with Alek Manoah being okay in the spring when he started. It's spring training. You look at the trends, but again, it's tough when it doesn't translate to the season. Danny Jansen being back, I think you're right. You got to give Danny Jansen the opportunity, especially right now. You give Kirk a little bit of a break. And then again, Kirk, since Jano's been back, the game before Jano's back, and then this last game, his at-bats weren't terrible. He got on base a couple times. It has been okay. Maybe he turns a corner. It is early on in the season. So again, we're not saying Alejandro Kirk or any of these players are going to be the best players in the world or the worst players. But so far, we just need to see better performances from Alejandro Kirk. Maybe it is because he's playing every day. But with Kirk, he's hitting so many balls on the ground. And unfortunately with Kirk, you're not that quick. So the ball on the ground is pretty much death for Alejandro Kirk. He's almost never going to make it on base when he's hitting it on the ground. You got to get the ball in the air. You got to get the ball into the outfield. Alejandro Kirk. Maybe it's an approach change. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but we got to see something change for Alejandro Kirk to have some success with the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, Carter, just before we get into the next segment, because, we got a preview. I know you have some young star stuff to talk about, some AAA stuff to talk about. But I did want to go over some of the team's stats as of right now. The Blue Jays hit 21st in runs scored, which is just not what we need to see. They're 23rd in hits. They're 22nd in average. On base percentage, they are 13th. So that's a little bit of a bright spot. That means they're getting on base through walks and other means. So that's good to see. But just overall, the hitting stats, they're 23rd in slugging, 21st in OPS. Home runs, they're 26th. They have been stealing more bases. They're 12th in the league in stolen bases. And you know what? They're 18th in runs allowed, 17th in hits allowed. Batting average against is 22nd in the league. ERA 23rd. This is just in strikeouts they're high. They're tied for 8th right now. It's just the team isn't playing 100% up to what we expected this year. But I think we're starting to see that turn, and I think that's why I wanted to look back at these stats. It's like, over the first bunch of games, it hasn't been ideal. But I think when you look at like the 6 games, these past 6 games, you'll see a big difference in the team that's playing ball right now than you did at the beginning of the season.
Oh, and maybe the numbers aren't jumping off the page right now, but the at-bats are definitely getting better. But I think one of the main reasons that these offensive numbers are so low is your top 3 guys. You have George Springer hitting 219 on the season. You have Bo Bichette hitting somewhere around there as well. I'm just getting the number now, 227. Vladdy under that 230 mark as well. Again, it's been better in recent days. Bo Bichette and George Springer both hitting somehow 259 in their last 7 games. So they're very similar stat lines. And Vladdy 240. It's better, but it's not what you need from your top 3 guys in the order. You got to be hitting over 250 if you're hitting 1, 2, 3. Again, the power is not really there either. So if you're going to be having a low average, you got to hit for power. That's not happening either. These at-bats are better, but even with these last 7 games, you got George Springer hitting 260, I'm okay with. Bo Bichette probably got to be a little bit higher. Vladdy hitting 240, that's not going to play. I don't care how much he's walking. We've been saying it all throughout the offseason. We'll say it all throughout the regular season. If you don't get your stars playing like superstars, the Jays are going absolutely nowhere. It doesn't matter how good David Schneider plays. It doesn't matter how good IKF is. Any of these players at the bottom of the order, doesn't matter how good the pitching is. If Vladdy, Bo, and Springer aren't playing up to par, up to how they should be playing, this Blue Jays team is not doing any damage to any team ever. They need to be hitting. They need to be better. It is getting better, but hopefully they can continue their momentum and pick it up throughout the season.
Yeah, for sure. Carter, I'm going to throw it back to you because we do want to take a break here so you can have enough time and stuff like that to talk about some of the AAA stars. And we got to preview the series coming up. So, Carter, I'm going to throw it to you for the 24/7 streaming channel that these guys should check out.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up our Locked On 24/7 streaming channel. It's always on 24 hours a day, either on the Amazon Fire TV's channel app or on YouTube. So just go to YouTube or the Fire's app today. Check out our expert opinions for Locked On. Just subscribe, check it out. It's always going to be there. And we're going to get into our series preview and some prospect talk a little bit. Spencer Horwitz, some other guys going off in AAA. We'll get into that right after this. Today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports app in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of betting against thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks is super easy. You can make your picks in under 60 seconds with just a few taps. Obviously, I've been dialed into the PrizePicks, mostly on the fantasy side of it because I'm trying to expand my fantasy knowledge in the MLB aspect of it because I'm pretty good in the NHL part of it. Obviously, absolutely rinsing Braden in our fantasy final. So I'm getting over to the MLB aspect of it. So I'm going to be going with my Blue Jays guys today. Hopefully Dalton Varsho can keep up his pace. I got him more fantasy points with more than 6.5. And then I decided to go with Vladdy as well, more than 7 points. Hopefully these Toronto Blue Jays can pick it up against the Padres for their first game of the series. If you guys want to join me in my picks or just make your own picks, you can download the app today and use code Locked On MLB for a first deposit matchup to $100. That's code Locked On MLB for a first deposit matchup to $100.
So, Carter, we want to get into the series preview, of course, but before we do that, I know you've prepared some stuff on some of our AAA prospects, so I will throw it to you so you could break some of those numbers down.
Yeah, as we just were talking about in that last segment, the Toronto Blue Jays bats are coming together a little bit. Did have a little bit of a slow start to the season, but looks like if we need some help with this batting aspect, we definitely have some options in AAA because if we were having these numbers, if these Toronto Blue Jays were hitting like this, we would probably maybe have lost 3 games this season because some of these stats are actually ridiculous. So I went through it. I could have picked more than 5. I decided to go with 5. These are more commonly known names. For me, there was only one name that I knew of, but I wasn't too familiar with. So I'm going to go over this real quick. The best guy so far in spring training for the Toronto Blue Jays, not even really close. He is absolutely raking, and that is Spencer Horwitz. I don't know what this guy has been eating since he got down to Buffalo, but holy, he is going crazy right now. So Spencer Horwitz, 365 average, 1 home run, 10 RBIs, 19 hits, and 18 walks. This guy is just getting on base like crazy with only 9 Ks. First baseman, a guy that can play pretty much anywhere in the infield. Again, he's pretty much specializes at first base. You probably don't want to throw him at third, shortstop, stuff like that. But he probably could suffice at third if you really needed him to. A guy that has had some service time in the MLB probably would be one of the first people to call up if we did need a guy. Moving into some other players, though, some of the younger guys, Addison Barger, Aurelvis Martinez, and Damiano Palmigiani. These 3 guys, a little bit on the younger side. Obviously, I talked about Palmigiani in the spring training quite a bit, and then top prospects, Aurelvis Martinez. Most people might have probably have heard about him, be number 2, and Addison Barger. So we'll start with Martinez. By the way, I just wanted to bring this up. Aurelvis Martinez, top of 10, Grand Slam. 469 feet.
Whew.
Yeah, I think he probably could have got a little bit more of that ball. Just missed it, but hopefully he gets all of it next time. But we'll go over Martinez's stats quick here. 296, 2 home runs, 10 RBIs, 16 hits, 6 doubles. Again, just all these guys seem to be hitting. Gianni had a 2 home run game, the same game as Aurelius Martinez, grand slam. He has 3 home runs, 10 RBI, 13 hits, 12 walks. Another guy that could be have a similar role to Davis Schneider, a guy that we didn't really hear about a ton going into this season, but could have a role with the Toronto Blue Jays depending on injuries. Barger, I'll get into him quick as well. 304 average, 16 RBIs, 17 hits, 8 doubles for this guy. This guy's smacking the ball, hitting it hard all over the diamond. And this is the guy that I wasn't really too familiar with. I have heard about him, but a guy that surprised me definitely when I saw these stats pop off the page. So Will Robertson, a right fielder, a guy that's not very high. Not very high on our prospect list. I was looking at the walk list, and he was number 5 on that. I didn't think he was number 5 on the prospect list. All right, so Will Robertson, 367, 12 RBIs, 11 hits, 9 walks. Again, just guy getting on base. Leads the team in home runs, has 4 home runs, tied with Dalton Varsho in the MLB league with the major leagues. Just, I guess, as a comparison, you can see how he's doing in comparison to some of the players in the MLB. 4 home runs, a guy that just raking to start the season. Maybe he's just caught some fire, maybe on a little bit of a Davis Schneider streak, maybe a little bit of an insanity run here. But who knows? Maybe he can keep it going. Obviously, it's nice to see that we're getting some big at-bats in AAA. I wish we were getting more of them in the major leagues instead of saving them in AAA.
Yeah.
But you always take it. You got some options here. So it's going to be interesting to see which one of these 5 will be called up first. I think it will be Horwitz, just based off the service time, stuff like that. But it could be any one of these 5, depending on who goes down, what happens. A lot of question marks, obviously, as it is a long season. But Braden, with a little bit of an info dump on you here, what's your biggest takeaway from what I just loaded up on you here?
Yeah. So honestly, I mean, it's great to see Horwitz doing well. I think we got a little bit of a taste of that with him last year, but it wasn't anything crazy. But my biggest takeaway is just that we have young guys available in the case of an injury or people really not playing well. And I don't know what this is going to take for one of these guys ever to make the jump. I don't really know right now. I don't know if there's a path at this moment. But I think as you look ahead as a Blue Jays fan and think, okay, well, we got guys in the system moving forward. And I think that has to be the biggest takeaway, is that as much as we talk about the Blue Jays don't have the best system right now for guys coming up, I think you look at this and you see these stats and it makes you a little bit more pleased with what this management team has done with acquiring some of these players. So at the end of the day, I think it's obviously a good thing. And it's good to see these guys doing well. It's just, where will we see these guys and when is the biggest question for me.
Yeah, I like that takeaway. I think that's definitely fair. My only thing with this is that you already have a major league club that is so packed and has so many mouths to feed already. It's what do you do with all these guys? You almost need like one of those blockbuster trades where we send away 3 of these players and get a guy like Christian Yelich. Maybe that's why these people, if these rumors aren't true, maybe that's why they're starting this. Maybe there's some traction there that the Blue Jays should be looking into. But yeah, like just looking at this lineup, where would Horwitz slide in? Where would Martinez slide in? Addison Barger, like there have to be a serious injury or a big roster move of some sort, because you have 4 less second baseman, third baseman. A lot of these guys, other than honestly Will Robertson, a lot of these guys are infielders. So again, it's tough for the Toronto Blue Jays. We have a ton of infielders, not a lot of outfielders. That's why you have Davis Schneider, Udi Clement, these guys platooning out to left field. But I guess with that, it is nice to see these AAA guys hitting. We obviously want to see the major leagues come through fruition. Hopefully that does happen in the future. But we do have a big series on the horizon for this weekend. We go over to San Diego to take on the Padres. So I have at least 2 of the matchups. It looks like the Friday one is for sure concrete. Saturday was supposed to be Yu Darvish for the Padres. Now it's not happening because he's on IL. And then, I'll just start from Friday. So Friday is Yariel Rodriguez versus Matt Waldron. Matt Waldron, one of the only knuckleballers left in the MLB. I know Braden is definitely familiar with this guy based off his MLB experience. Braden, how do you feel about watching Matt Waldron instead of on the PS5, taking it to the big stage?
Yeah, it's going to be weird. Honestly, it's a guy. Well, first of all, I want to take it back. Blue Jays off to Petco Park. I am so ready to watch some baseball there. It's one of the nicest ballparks there is. It's always a fun watch at that park. So even if you're just watching on TV, it is really cool to see. But no, talking about Waldron, of course, we have an MLB The Show like custom league that we play each other in, a bunch of us, and my brother decides to pitch Matt Waldron against me, and the knuckleball in that game is just ridiculous. It's almost unhittable. But too bad I'm just well, I was going to say I'm good at the game, but my record does not help that. But it's going to be cool to see him in real life, see what the knuckleball actually looks like, not this fantasy version of whatever the knuckleball is. So that'll be fun. He's got a decent ERA this year. Actually, it's sitting at a 3.14, which is really good for a guy that I don't think they necessarily expected that from. So, and pitching him against Yariel Rodriguez is going to be very interesting. I think seeing how Yariel handles the Padres is going to be a very interesting watch. So I'll be really excited for that game.
For me, that is by far the game I'm the most excited for. Seeing a knuckleballer when you don't have knuckleballers in the league anymore. And then just Yariel Rodriguez, how electric that first start was. I think that is going to be the game of the weekend. So for Saturday, obviously the Padres don't have a starter, but we got Jose Barrios. I mean, Jose Barrios this year, there's not really much to say. He's, you know what you're going to get out of him. I wouldn't be surprised. He goes 6 scoreless innings. Then you got Sunday, Chris Bassett, and it looks like Joe Musgrove is slated. That could change depending on what they do with Yu Darvish. Maybe they move Musgrove up. Really depends on how they deal with that injury. Braden, I'll give it to you first here for your predictions. But I guess before we go into that, we'll recap our predictions from this Yankee series. So I had a 2-1 win. I did have them losing the Kikuchi start, so I pick up 2 points. Braden had a Blue Jays loss. Typical, betting against the Blue Jays. Not something you want to do, obviously. But you had the win being that Jose Barrios game, so you got that one. And then you had a loss in the third game. So you actually tied me in points. So again, I got the series right, but didn't get the games. So 2-2, nice. You are still up 12-10. But Braden, I'll give it over to you for the Padres series.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough right now since we don't necessarily know who or what the starters are going to look like. But I have to roll with Yariel Rodriguez. I really think that this could be like sort of an explosion game for him, and we see what he can really do. So I don't know if necessarily that's the best take of going with the unknown, but I'm going to go with the unknown. I'm going to say they're going to win the first game, and then they are going to win the second game, and we're going to lose the Chris Bassett start. I think I can't bet against Jose Barrios. It's just I can't do it because he's been so good up to this point. So I'm going to go with a 2-1 series win for the Blue Jays with a win in game 1 and 2. Same as the past one, I guess.
See, I have a bad feeling about this Rodriguez start. I don't think it's because of Rodriguez. I'm seeing Vladdy and Bo swing at garbage sliders in the dirt. Imagine what they're going to do with a knuckleball in the dirt. They aren't even going to be in the right realm of swinging at this pitch. So I think they're going to lose that game. I don't think they're going to score any runs. I think it's going to be something like 4-2 maybe, something along those lines. They'll lose that game. Jose Barrios, if you're betting against this guy, you're a crazy person because Jose Barrios is literally a crazy person on the mound. He's a psycho out there being unbelievable. Not especially with Yu Darvish, it would have been closer with whoever it is now. I don't see that being close. I think the Jays take that one. Chris Bassett, Joe Musgrove. This is a very tough one for me. I have to bet with the Blue Jays. I don't want to go against my team, so I'm gonna go with a 2-1. I don't know how I feel about that game though. I think it's a very big coin flip. Those are both very good pitchers. Really, always in every series is going to be. It depends on how the Blue Jays hit the baseball. The Blue Jays aren't going to hit. They're not going to win the games, obviously. So this pitching not going to be the problem. The Padres do have a good lineup. A lot of good players over there. Tatis going off, having MVP-like numbers right now. Again, only 20 games into the season. But it's going to be an interesting series. Obviously, nice to take on the Padres. You don't see them too often. But as we head into the weekend, just wanted to say thank you guys for watching. We appreciate all the likes, comments, subscriptions. We always appreciate all the support you guys are giving us, the comments, especially debating with you guys, whether you agree or disagree with us. We always like talking about the Blue Jays no matter what. I just wanted to throw it over to our Locked On 24/7 streaming channel. Perfect opportunity. All the sports you could ever want to watch all going on right now. One of the best times of the year to be a sports fan. Just go over to the Locked On channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV's channel app. And you can digest any of the sports content that we cover over there from our expert analysis. Braden, again, anything else you want to add before we get into the weekend here?
Have a great weekend, guys. I am off Friday, Saturday, Sunday from work as of right now, so I am going to take full advantage. I will be into the beers. I will be into the Blue Jays, and I'm also going to do some golfing. So it's going to be just a fantastic weekend all around.
Yeah, a couple night games actually for us. I know it's obviously different depending on where you are, but for us, it's a 7:40 start for in the Saturday night, especially. That's one that's going to be interesting. Definitely going to enjoy a couple beverages for that one. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and just be safe. Don't be idiots for the weekend. We'll see you on Monday.